Hey everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I have with me one of the OGs of when this whole thing started, Sam Johnson. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back, Andrew.
I know it's been like 8 years that you've been in out of my show for almost I think 8 years at this point, which is crazy. We go way back, at least 4, if not 5 interviews at this point. You got a lot of stuff that's come out. Obviously, we talked about Geek Girl, but you have another Kickstarter, and I'm just going to give everybody a heads up that I'm probably going to get it wrong, even though we just went over it, pronouncing it. But you have a Kickstarter going on with Cabra, Cini. And I think I got it right. But I just wanted to preface it. So in case I got it wrong, nobody would yell at me. It's Voodoo Junkie Hitwoman. And it's for issues 1 to 3. And yeah, so obviously you have the 3rd issue coming out, but all 3 are available. But what is the basic premise of this comic for people hearing about it for the first time?
I mean, the tagline of it on Kickstarter is take Jessica Jones. Deadpool and is she's an ex-crack whore who, tired of the abuse of her boyfriend / pimp, got full payback, discovering voodoo on the way, combining voodoo and guns, liked it, and has forged a deadly new vocation as a supernatural gun for hire.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot.
She basically got sick and tired of just getting abused and kind of cleans up her life a little bit. And so what is this like? Because this is one of the things I like about your book is that it's very much a redemption story in a lot of ways. And it's also a story of coming into power, also being responsible with power, not abusing it, or even slightly abusing power to have a good time, because Cabra does some interesting things with her powers that may or may not be superhero-esque, for lack of a better word.
No, I think morality is possibly not akin to Clark Kent's. I mean, at the opening of issue 1, there's El Hombre Lobo, a guy, a werewolf who's kind of terrorizing her neighborhood and causing problems for her and impacting on her love life when she's getting it on with her buddy Jeff. So she decides to take care of this, but how she takes care of this is not by using her voodoo magic. She concocts a potion, but the potion isn't to prevent him being a werewolf, it's to make him permanently in werewolf form, and then she takes him as a pet because she wants a pet. The morality, you could argue that's somewhat selfish. And another thing she does is use this dimension called the infinite as a gateway between wherever she is and wherever she wants to know, and she's not meant to do what she does with that. So there's certainly a self-serving thing going on with Cabra.
But let's actually talk about this, because this is what I think makes the book interesting, is the idea that, and this is just how I viewed it, that if we got superpowers, a bunch of us might want to do the right thing. And I like to think that humanity tends to do the right thing more often than not. And maybe I'm an optimistic type of guy. But I also think that we also, and all of us would do it, is we would abuse our powers. We would serve our own self-interests. And it's very interesting. And it's nice to see that somebody is serving her own self-interest, but she still wants to do a little bit of good to some degree, but she wants to make her life better with her powers. And that's what makes this book so interesting, in my opinion, is that it's real to the point where she has a particular, I guess, stance, and she is embodying what people tend to do, where you got powers and you're now using them for both good to some degree, but also your self-interest and dealing with your problems to make your life difficult.
I mean, like the example of the werewolf, though she has taken El Hombre Lobo as her pet, she has therefore removed him from causing random havoc on the streets and hurting people and turning them into other werewolves. And when she uses him in her battles or in her case, it's against Whiteout, a neo-Nazi that's pitched up in a Detroit neighborhood to rid it of its less desirable elements. So he and his zombified butler, who carries a drinks decanter around for Whiteout, the butler's called Chives, drinks decanter around for Whiteout to enjoy a drink after he's just shot someone. So El Hombre Lobo is used to help take on these two. So that's, that is good.
Yeah, let's actually go into sort of issue 2 and issue 3 a little bit, because I think we're jumping the gun a little bit, where obviously, we kind of get that. And then in issue 1 and even in issue 0, we figure out who Cabra is and what's happened and getting her revenge. And then we start realizing that she's made a lot of enemies, not necessarily purposeful, but, she's pretty much pissed off the ruler Rook of the dimension that she's abusing, and he's trying to mess her up. And then she now has to deal with that. And so what is that like too? Because now you have her pissing off him, and he's trying to throw things at her, both dimensional and psychological and physical. And kind of issue 2 deals with some of that. And even parts of issue 3 deal with that, and that's far from over. And so obviously, what is this like? Because you've really developed, in my opinion, a bunch of storylines that end a little bit, but they don't end fully. And you could always come back into them. And then one thing leads to another. And then obviously issue 3 is dealing with Whiteout and that entire neo-Nazi, machinist type cult era thing.
So yeah, I mean the dimension, the infinite, is something combining her bastardized voodoo magic with, basically, if it's difficult to find someone, all she needs is a photo, and then combining that with her bastardized voodoo magic, a sigil, a symbol of fertility, she can open a portal into this dimension, the infinite, that also creates another portal somewhere else in it, and then there's like these magical symbols that guide her from one to the other. However, the infinite is Limbo's crazy cousin locked away in the attic, and it's not meant to be used and abused this way. So the Rook, as you said, throws a lot at her to dissuade her, and this is something a place she routinely visits. It's not like necessary for every hit, but if there's for example, there's a tie-in with Geek Girl, wherein someone's shot someone, they've hired Cabra to find this guy, and this guy has disappeared. So there's no idea where this guy is. So using the aforementioned items and magic, she can find him. So it's not like she has to employ this technique every time, but she is a frequent flyer of the infinite, and the Rook does not like this. And in issue 0, there's a villain, Mr. Mashup, that houses a vessel that he can tap into someone's mind and transform this vessel into like a clone of them, but he's still sort of in control mentally of this clone. And what he does to dissuade Cabra on her trip during issue 0, where we establish the infinite, is he transforms this clone into Ray, who is her ex-boyfriend / pimp, who she shot. So that's something of a head fuck for her.
Yeah, because this is what I like about it, is that obviously, as this series progresses, she's dealing with the Rook, and the Rook can take front and center. The Rook could also be pulling the strings in a puppet way, or the Rook, when she's dealing with this neo-Nazi group, can take a step aside as far as the entire comic realm of what's going on and for a few issues. And it makes a really interesting overarching villain and something to deal with that she has to deal with that could be revisited and then backed off. And I view it almost similar, like, you know, how Superman or Batman has a series of villains that are never ever fully defeated. And I think that's sometimes lacking in not necessarily superhero books or even indie superhero books, but just collectively when you have magic and other things, and you have, I guess, for lack of a better word, a war going on between factions is a good way to put it. And I think it's a nice way to do it in a lot of ways, because also the Rook is also not directly dealing with Cabra for the most part, right now at the very least. And that's why I like this, because it's such an interesting way to tell a story that it's indirect, like combat.
Yeah, I mean it's and he's not a villain in inverted commas, really. I mean, basically, she is intruding on his dimension. We don't. He's like the god of this dimension. We hear his voice. We don't see him. The physical threats come from other creatures in the dimension, but all he wants is for Cabra to just stop. You know, taking the piss, using this dimension as a little taxi. That's all he wants. He just wants her to stop. But she won't. And she's kind of cocky about it. Yeah.
It's interesting because that's an overarching thing, and that's far from over on what he wants. And he just wants her to stop, and he's trying to dissuade her, and just reasonableness. But then fast forward, you also get the voodoo magic stuff in there. And then also the whole thing is that, and this is what issue 3 starts dealing with, is that this neo-Nazi group that you were alluding to starts sort of coming into the neighborhood, and they want to, I guess, clean up the neighborhood, but not clean it up as in remove the graffiti guys.
No,
Take
they're
a little
not
bit
going around wiping walls.
They have a little bit more of a violent edge to them, to say the least.
Yeah.
And obviously, she doesn't take too kind to it. She doesn't like them. And then obviously, conflict ensues. And I don't think the Rook was involved in this from what I got. But it also is fascinating because now you have her involved in something that kind of came into her doorstep. And this is because she really just wanted to hook up. They really just messed with her hooking up, is really how this started, which is understandable. It's completely understandable.
Yeah, I mean, what happened was this is right at the beginning of issue 1. But yeah, Alombo Lobo was doing his thing before she's met him, knocks some bins over, knocks some garbage cans over, and it distracts. Jeff thinks there's some intruder outside or something while they're getting it on, and that kind of ruins the moment. And she's not happy about this. And then Whiteout is something of an eccentric character, and neo-Nazi. There's also a thing where he's something of an urban legend. He may or may not be a ghost, and Cabra goes to take him on with a baseball bat that she's instilled with the spirit of a voodoo warlord, to give him a tap and establish whether he is actually a ghost or not.
Yeah, let's even talk about this too, because this is where this gets interesting. Is that obviously Whiteout is very eccentric and is larger than life in certain ways, and he may or may not be, or she may not be dead. We're not exactly sure at the moment, everybody. I have to be open about this. I don't want to ruin too much for everybody. But one of the things is that it's interesting because I believe that villains make heroes and make characters, and they really force growth, and they force, certain characteristics to emerge. And Cabra obviously has a very unique personality, and I don't think she's lacking in any area in that. But it's also nice to see the fact that, she's very aggressive and that she has the wherewithal to say, look, I'm just going to take it to this ghost. And it's kind of nice to see that action, because we know Cabra's personality, but we don't know her actions when she's faced with something that might be super, supernatural.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of a jack of all trades. As I say, in this case, she gets this baseball bat to, if he's not a ghost, he's going to feel that. But yeah, I mean, there is a character arc with it. I mean, another thing that's going on that connects with what Whiteout is up to, and the aforementioned incident with her F buddy Jeff, is Jeff wants to get closer to her. So he knows what her life is. He doesn't know the extent of the weirdness that she inhabits. But he wants to get close to her. They've been spending more time together. He wants this to be a relationship. So he wants her to let her in. If she does let her in, that opens him up to everything she's dealing with, which is a lot.
Yeah, that's also the other part of this is, and it's something that I feel superhero books don't really explore, is this idea of you have a relationship with somebody and you're a superhero, or you are a vigilante, or you're a supernatural fighter. There's going to be a point where something hits your family,
Yeah,
and when do you let them know? When do you not let them know? I mean, I think, what was it? I forget. Age of Ultron, I think, was a really good scene where they're fleeing and they go to Hawkeye's house, and nobody knew Hawkeye had a family, and it was kept in secret. And it's that idea that it was kept in secret to protect them. And I think that's something that this is sort of touching upon a little bit, and it's a fascinating idea to tell and story to tell when you're doing it. But obviously, we don't even know what her intentions are, though, where she just wants to have a fuck buddy or she wants a relationship. And that's where this also gets massively complicated. It gets all, I guess, tangled up, and it's really good. It's enjoyable.
yeah. I mean, I think basically in issue one, when Jeff tries to get close to her, she lets him into her mindscape, and I think she wouldn't do that if she just wanted to carry on just as things were, because she's letting him inside her head, and how messed up that is. And another thing, so he's kind of like mentally in there in this mindscape, and it's pretty messed up. And another thing with it is that this is something she uses as part of one of the components of finding her hits and finding out about her hits. But she's like losing control of it, and it's some of it's starting to sort of resemble the infinite. And usually it's just her, sort of in the driving seat, looking for what she wants to find without any outside interference. And then there's this. So he also goes inside her head when she is not really fully in control of her head. And her experiences in the infinite are kind of, though she thinks she can deal with it all, they are taking a psychological toll. I mean, you go to some dimension and there's some guy that, for all intents and purposes, your ex dead boyfriend slash pimp. That's a head fuck.
Yeah, there are consequences for doing certain things in life, and it's getting very interesting, and it's a very fascinating, I guess, experience for her and what she's doing, and even the cost of using her powers. And it's really interesting that even why she's doing it, what she's doing it, how she's dealing with all these problems that are going on. And yeah, it's just a fun book to read. It really is, and it's a trippy book to read. But I don't want to go too deep into this because obviously I don't want to ruin too much of it. If you're into magic and voodoo and a crazy story and a badass girl kicking ass, I mean, and in a very interesting way, is all I'm going to say on this. It's super cool. And I think what you get on the cover is what you get in the book, is a good way to put it.
Well, let's just flash the cover. So we've got.
I have it.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
prepared. I'm prepared.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, and a very nice cover from Carlos VS there. Just, yeah, great image. And that's
But
her
I do want to talk about inside baseball behind all of this just as much. Because I do think it's interesting. Because obviously you've been on Kickstarter. Have you been on Indiegogo by any chance?
Not in any real shape or form. I sort of put my foot in the waters a bit, and it's not for me. I mean, the whole comics gate being so much a part of it is a deterrent to me.
I ask because I don't know where people fund anymore. And I'll back projects where I am very much a consumer more than a producer at this point. But again, I mean, I know you've been doing, I think, 8 or 9 on Kickstarter, I think, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think probably like 7 for Geek Girl, and then this is the second for Cabra.
And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about because I think you did issue 1 on Kickstarter, if I'm not mistaken, and that funded, and that did very well. And I think you've done better with issues 3 and technically issue 2 as well, because I think you self-published. Did you self-publish issue 2, or did you publish issue 2 also on Kickstarter?
No, I mean, the first Kickstarter was issue 1 plus issue 0. This one is issue 2 and 3 plus issue 1 and 0. Yeah, it's not so far. Kickstarter is the only place you can get it. I mean, there's a route that sometimes happens where projects get noticed on Kickstarter and then get picked up and then released through a publisher like that. Scout Comics, I think, tend to scout Kickstarter for their talent. So I've gone on it before I've shopped it to any publishers. So the thing about backing it on the Kickstarter is if it gets picked up by a publisher, there's that's going to be a time process there. So if you get it on Kickstarter, you're going to get it way before
There's
anywhere else.
Somebody said to me that if their book gets picked up, the Kickstarter is almost like a pre-print run, essentially, and almost like a first edition. And then the publisher is not. If a book got picked up by Scout, since we mentioned Scout, and the book was first on Kickstarter, if you got the Kickstarter edition, that is the first print run. And the Scout version of that book is more like a second print run, technically, even though it might be a first print run at Scout. But what is this like for you? Because, when you do push things out on Kickstarter and doing double issues, and obviously Kickstarter is a great equalizer in a lot of ways. And it also shows the interest, I feel, of a project. And even if there's not an interest, but you fund over your goal, it still allows you to deliver. And so what is that like? Because, it is an equalizer at this point, and now you can almost circumvent a publisher, where 10 years ago that wasn't an option.
Yeah. I mean, I do the most on Kickstarter in terms of sales, I guess. Well, I'm not sure about that, but it's a good generator. And yeah, but what I did with Cabra Cini though is like that. It's a 4-issue miniseries plus the 0, and the artwork for it, most of it has been completed for some time. But I wanted to introduce her in the pages of Geek Girl before putting her own series on Kickstarter. So she has an arc in Geek Girl, which is the arc begins in issue 5 of Geek Girl, which is where Geek Girl becomes the front girl for a new super team, and things get weird. So yeah, she's in that, which you can get that on there as well as an add-on. The Team Geek Girl trade paperback. But yeah, what I'm alluding to here is, I think, had I just culled here's Cabra Cini on Kickstarter, it wouldn't have gone the way it has. It wouldn't have done as well as it has.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, of introducing a character in another book before you bring it out and getting people familiar with it. And I guess for me, in the way I view it, is that you can introduce a character, you could see how people react to that character, if they like that character, what they like about it, what they don't like, or even what draws them to that character. And you can get feedback in a very, I guess, safe way, for lack of a better word, where if people hated Cabra in Geek Girl, that might have given you an indication saying, okay, why don't they like this character? Or if they love her or they're interested in her, that might also change the way you approach writing it or putting out the book and our own title. And so, what was that like? And then also, as you're building your audience, you also can get a sense what they want, what type of art they like. If they really like, the cover of a particular book that she was in and she was on the cover, that's going to give you an indication. So, what was that like? Because in a sense, it was almost like a focus group of testing how it would be received.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt that Geek Girl has a broader appeal. I mean, it's Geek Girl, for those that aren't aware, is hot popular college chick, bit of an it girl, lands these super tech glasses, gets superpowers, becomes a sort of, worthy superhero. And Cabra's a lot darker than that. So I have, some of the Kickstarter backers, some of my friends that follow Geek Girl don't follow Cabra because it's a different animal. But I think the appearances of Cabra in Geek Girl went down well and fit very much within the world of Geek. I mean, it's a shared universe, obviously. But something else that was great about it was, Cabra, as I said, the artwork for this miniseries was for the most part already done. But see Grander, the artist, the regular artist on Geek Girl, draws her great. I mean, you've got scenes in the Infinite in the pages of Geek Girl when she's trying to find this guy that got shot, the guy that shot the guy that's shot, and he really Grander, it brings like great body language and facial expressions, and you can see like the cockiness in her when she's strolling through the Infinite. That's, I can take that. That's not a problem, Rook. And so off the back of that, I want him to do a variant cover for Cabra now, which hopefully will happen in time for the conclusion of this Kickstarter as an add-on. Because he gets the characters, and he really brings out when you see it's in one of the updates on the cover, which let's link to, is CABRACINI.com is the easy link rather than a convoluted Kickstarter.
Yeah.
In one of the updates, you can preview there's a big part of Geek Girl's art with Geek Girl's Cabra's arc in Geek Girl, illustrated by Grander, and it looks great. And Chanlin Zhao, the regular colorist on Geek Girl, great job on this bizarre infinite dimension. Great job on that as well. So hopefully we might just get in, because I've only actually come up with this thought today that I want them to do a limited variant. Hopefully we'll be able to get that done in time before the Kickstarter ends.
Yeah, so
March.
Yeah, you mentioned a bunch of variant stuff, and obviously I love variants. I love buying variants. I love selling variants. And correct me if I'm wrong and tell me, feel free to disagree, I guess. But I think that on Kickstarter, in a lot of ways, you need to have things that make you stand out, and having different variants, having limited runs, having almost print to order is a good example of that, or having a limited 50 set. And so what is that like for you? Because while you want people to read the story, you also want to get funded, and finding that balance. And I think it's a really tricky thing, because you don't want to waste money on a comic that 5 people are going to buy, but you also want to make sure that you get funded, and you also want to make sure that people read your book and not just pick up your comic for the cool cover art, but also you want to get funded. It's so tricky. And so what is that like? Because I think you know this, I know this, and I think a lot of people know this. is that there's a bunch of people who want to just read a good story and they're happy to buy cover A or B. There's a bunch of people who want to read a good story and also want a super limited book. And there's a lot of people who say, I don't care about the story. I love that art on that cover and I want to bag and board it, or I want to get it graded. And I find that it to be a collectible. I'm hoping that this gets optioned sometimes, or I want to get it graded and hang it up on my wall because it's a beautiful piece and I don't really care about the story. So what is that like for you, figuring out how to hit all those niches? Because that's how you sort of get funded, I think, on Kickstarter right now, collectively for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, part of what I enjoy about the whole variance on Kickstarter thing is I tend to, like I've just mentioned, I want Grander and Challen to do one before the campaign's up, if there's time to get it done, is I come up with ideas during the campaign and I come across artists I'd like to work with on the covers during the campaign. So in the previous one, I came across an artist called Flops Comics who does very sort of retro looking stylized covers, and I came up with the idea of him doing a Grindhouse one, and he was really into that, and that's turned out great. And then I was really into there we go. I mean that's very cool. At Flops Comics is if you want to see more of him on Twitter and Instagram, because that's very much his style. That's the kind of, if you like that, that's what he does. And then a show that some people will be aware of called Brand New Cherry Flavor, which is also fucked up. We did Richard Morgan there during the previous campaign. I came across his work and thought he'd be a good fit, and he's done that, which is when you see it in close, it says after Brand New Cherry Flavor on her arm there, which we're not going to see on this, but in physicality you can. And what we did there, in Brand New Cherry Flavor, is this fucked up thing where it's this girl is like an indie filmmaker gets taken on by a big shot to make a Hollywood remake, and no one can quite understand how she's done what she's done in this indie film she makes, because it looks so real and it involves someone eating their own eyeball. And the poster for that has the character whose name is alluded, her surname's Nova, but she Lisa Nova. She has like an eyeball in her mouth, and what we did in the homage there is we've got Cabra with a voodoo leanings, has got a shrunken skull in her mouth. So it's a nice homage on that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's fun to do these things because it also like, if you've already backed, it's something to keep you interested in the campaign, that new things are going to come up, and you can, Kickstarter is really didn't used to have an add-on feature, but have really started doing that and then bolstered it by only recently they've got images. So whereas before you had to, scroll down on the left and memorize everything you wanted, and then you back your reward, and then you get to your add-on and write, what was the thing I wanted? Now, and this is new, I think, in the last few days, you can see all the add-ons have an image of what you're backing, which is like, it's a no-brainer. Why they didn't? It's something that's been, I mean, Comics Launch with an X is a podcast that I always listen to that is very helpful for anyone that wants tips on how to run Kickstarters. And it's been referenced on that. Tyler James runs that. How, this has been the most demanded thing from Kickstarter to have.
In many ways, this is a game changer for Kickstarter. And it may not sound like it, but it is, because it makes it that cool. I now know the picture of what I'm buying. And now I can scroll through and say, I like this cover, it works. And it's a big difference because it makes it so that I know exactly what I want and I'm not questioning it. And then you mentioned something else that actually a friend of mine, and I'm gearing up for a campaign probably in the next 12 months. And what he was saying to me is that maybe you should, if you're going to do 6 rewards, maybe you should have a reward drop in week 2, your 4th reward, your 5th reward drop in week 3, and your last word drop in the last week. This way, your campaign is fresh. And constantly keeping your campaign fresh so that people come back to your campaign and they have a reason to be there. And I was explaining to another friend of mine that, you have to keep your campaign fresh, change of images, maybe modify things, maybe add a new image somewhere, maybe do something that is a little bit different. Or if you have 10 preview pages, maybe you only release 6, and then in week 2, you drop the next 2. This way, people come back and they might buy more things. And it's so interesting because there's a lot of psychology that goes into this. And I haven't done it yet. And which I ran a Kickstarter for something else, but obviously when I do my comic, I'm going to very much come in with a strategy and definitely approach it on a psychological level. And it could work or it could fail, but I definitely think that that's a big thing, is keeping your campaign fresh and not treating it like a store, but like an experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I would really recommend you listen to Comics Launch with an X. For loads of ideas on that. But I agree with everything you say. It isn't like you go into a comic shop, you buy a comic, that's it. These people are putting money into your project. They're a part of it. I have a lot of people that regularly, I've got like a sort of list of people I know that are into it and will retweet it. And you want it to be, it is an event. So you add things in it, and it keeps it interesting for you as well, because if everything was there on day one and all you're doing is just, constantly peddling that's something. Whereas like I did in the previous campaign, discovering these artists during it that I think would be a great fit, and then adding these, getting these variants done while the campaign's running and adding them, and it makes it certainly more exciting.
Yeah, so let me ask you this too, because this is one of my biggest issues, and I'm very confused on it. And I'm gonna get shit for it, regardless of no matter which side I'm on. But I actually think it's really bad when people are running 12 campaigns a year, one every month. And I think it's bad for 2 reasons. I think it cheapens that you're doing a Kickstarter, because I think it is an event. I take a wrestling approach to this. WWE runs one pay-per-view a month. If they were running a pay-per-view every week, every Saturday, it would lose credibility. It's just like Monday Night Raw. It doesn't mean anything. When you're running WrestleMania and then I have 30 days to wait till Backlash, I'm tuned in to watch Backlash. And then after that, I tune in to watch Money in the Bank. And I feel like it means something. But we're building to a pivotal point, and I actually watch it. If it was every 2 weeks or every week, I would not watch every single one. And I think and I'm very curious how you feel about that. And then the second part, why I feel it's really bad, is that you can drain your backer or backers so quickly if you're running high-end campaigns, that I think that there gets to a point where somebody's like, I'm a completionist, I want to support person A, but I'm broke. And I think it's very dangerous on both those fronts, because I think that it's spelling disaster and presenting disaster. And I'm curious how you feel about that, because I think we're in a weird time with comics, and we're in a weird time with Kickstarter, and they allow people to basically launch projects back to back.
Yeah, I think
you could plead the fifth at any point. I'm just letting you know. You could take the fifth. You don't have to be an American citizen to plead the fifth.
No, I don't think there's a lot where you're going to get, certainly monthly Kickstarters. The burnout from that as a creator, because you are devoting a lot of time to this. Like I say, I have a part-time day job, and when I have a Kickstarter, I book a lot of holiday time so that on, much of it, I can be devoting full time to it. Now, the idea of going immediately from, giving it everything you've got to doing it again straight away after is not an appealing thing. It takes a lot out of you, and you put a lot into it. And also, having that limited time, part of why Kickstarter works is that it's a limited thing. If there's going to be another one around the next month and you can get the same things then you haven't got that. As I say, like the Cabra things, you know, there's been 2 which have been fairly far apart. There's only 4 issues in this mini series, and as it stands, these are the only places you can get this series. So that makes it something of an event. But as I say, just more than anything for me, is if as someone running a Kickstarter, the toll I think it would take if you were just doing this back to back would be, and you wouldn't be able to, you know, have the buzz you have for it. You know, it's like you want some downtime after you've spent pretty much every day of the month coming up with ideas for this, promoting this. So I don't think it's de rigueur to you know, keep, you know, one after another. Certainly publishers that do anything like that, it's not going to be the same book issue after issue. It's going to be for various projects. I mean, but Brian Pulido, I think, runs one with Coffin Comics. I think it's every 3 months. And
Yeah.
the demand for his and the event feel that he creates is hard to top.
There's right now about 4 people who are running monthly or almost monthly. It's Merc Mag, Travis Gibb, Pat Shand, and I forget the 4th, but there's another one that's almost running every month. And it's that you can really drain your backer. And also there's a very interesting mentality that I've noticed, where it's also the idea that it's you're either all in with me and nobody else, or you're not going to be able to participate if you want everything. Brian Pulido is a really good example, where the Brian Pulido Kickstarter fans, they are all in, and it is life or death, no pun intended, with him. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a brilliant motto when you have devoted fans who are willing to follow you to the end of the earth. It means that people are very loyal to you. And, you know, unfortunately, every time Brian Pulido launches a Kickstarter, I have no money. It happens. Me and him have to talk about maybe he can move it back a month and move it up a month. You know, I like to be accommodated.
Yeah, that's good.
me and my guys. All jokes aside, but he does a great job. But he does have those fans that are all in, and
Yeah.
that's what's going on with Merc Mag. That's what's going on with Zenoscope, and I even think with a bunch of other creators. And I think it's a very interesting, I guess, thing that's being tested, whether it stands through time, or it breaks, or things pivot. You know, I think it's going to be very interesting, because I think it has merit, but I also think it's very dangerous. And that's just my personal opinion on it, because all it takes is that you need to just mess up on one book, and then you lose your audience.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, is if you're pacing it, you know, it's not just you're on the Kickstarter and then that's it. There's the fulfillment side, which always takes longer than you think it's going to. And, you know, things don't, I mean, in my last Kickstarter for Geek Girl, during that, we had multiple postal strikes here in England. So that was helpful, as in not during the campaign, as in when we're at the fulfillment stage. And some cyber attack, which meant at some point they were no longer allowing us to send anything overseas, and anything that was overseas was held in a massive backlog. So the fulfillment, you got to be prepared for some anomalies, and you know, it takes time to get these books packed up and shipped out. And if your next campaigns aren't up before you finish doing that, that's not going to be fun times.
Yeah, I think again. And also the other side of this debate is that a lot of people like me are waiting. I mean, I have 12 outstanding projects. Now, some of them are long overdue. Some of them I will never see the light of day of. God bless them. And I've already cut my losses. And if they arrive in my mail, wow, I'm going to be lucky. And it's going to be like a gift that I didn't even know existed. But then there's other projects that are still, within their time frame, but they're still due. It doesn't mean that, just because it's supposed to come in June doesn't mean that June is right around the corner. I mean, June is 12 weeks away, guys. And that doesn't mean, it's still not an outstanding project or a project I didn't back. And that's why I'm very hesitant to really add a few more projects in, because when you have 12, 15, or 20 projects that are due, it's a little too many, in my opinion, for me to feel massively comfortable. And again, fulfillment takes forever. And I get it. And I understand that your campaign is, that I backed the campaign is still going on. So you're not even funded yet, per se. Just using you as an example, for lack of a better word. So you're not overdue. But if you say it's coming in June, it's really coming in August.
I mean, the advantage we've got with this is that it's basically more or less complete already. So sometimes, I mean, routinely when I run a Geek Girl Kickstarter, Grander is working on at least one of the two new issues that we have up while the campaign's running. Things happen. Art might not get done as quickly as you'd hope. So you've got to factor that in when you're saying, your projected delivery date. But with Cabra, we're all right because, as I say, in order to introduce the character in the pages of Geek Girl, the art's been done for a long time, most of it. So in terms of the two new issues, they're basically done. Apart from me adding like an inlay page, they're done. So we're not going to have any problems because this is, although the campaign ends at the end of March, these rewards are going to be going out in May, which is quite a short, time frame for a Kickstarter. But we can do it because there's no ambiguity of whether everything's going to be ready because it basically is.
Fair enough. I'm just saying that I always expect everything to be delayed now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have no faith in any creator when they say something's going to be delivered in June, and I have no faith in any of them. And it's because I've been burned, and I know that that's just the way it is. I'm also well aware that. And I mean, this is how I feel in the U.S. is that I feel a bunch of people dipped into the cookie jar that had projects last year, and they're waiting for their tax refund in the U.S. to get their project out. So if your project is overdue and you're expecting a refund of $1,500 on your taxes, that money's going right to printing or paying for some art or for some shipping, and that's where I think things are coming. And so I think there's going to be a lot of deliveries from Kickstarter in May, June, and July because of people's tax returns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think. And so I'm well aware that I understand as a business that that's something that's going on. But that's a U.S. problem. As far as Kickstarter goes, I don't know what a tax season looks like in the UK or anywhere else in the world, but in the U.S., that's definitely a factor. I want to put real money on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically, as I say, there's a thing where one way of doing Kickstarters is basically you're using the money from that Kickstarter to get what you're actually producing during it, whereas I tend to already have it paid for, and then the money will go to, like in the case of Geek Girl, towards future issues of Geek Girl. So yeah, it's it's a balancing act, the whole thing. But
it's really fascinating where I mean, I come from the world of investing, and so there's a concept called seed money. And seed money is you have X amount of money and you basically fund an option. So I'll use a basic number for anybody who's really interested in it, is that you have $6,000 and then you fund it. And then for a comic book, it might cost you $6,000 to do everything. And then you go to Kickstarter, and then you get $6,000, or you raised $8,000. So now you take out your $6,000 because you paid for all the art, you paid for all of everything you needed. Maybe printing runs you $1,500, and then you take that $6,000 and you put it into the next book, and then you keep repeating the process, essentially, where you're just reproducing and re-getting your seed money back. Instead of taking it out for yourself, you're taking it into putting it into the next project, and the next project, and the next project. And what you hope is that you go from having $8,000 to $9,000 to $10,000 to the point where now you can take a distribution. And I think that's one option that people think, where they do it. Or some people say, look, I really have $2,000 and I need the $4,000 to produce the book. And there you go. And that's the other option, I think, is on Kickstarter at this point. And so it's really interesting. And I view this all differently because I come from the world of investing, and I'm an investor in a lot of things. And so I view Kickstarter as issuing essentially a reward, or a, not equity, but a, I guess a gift is a good way to put it, for providing funding instead of equity. But it's a whole thing, big thing. It's whatever. It's like venture capital without any equity is what Kickstarter is.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I as I say, I don't tend to be dependent entirely on the Kickstarter to get my books done, but as a result, massive credit card debts. So, swings and roundabouts.
Hey, I know plenty of creators who are in debt. I know plenty of creators who put things on their credit cards because they don't have a choice. And Kickstarter provides an option to at least finance some of that.
Yeah, no, and another thing about it is, if you've got a book coming out in a comic shop, it's out and then that's it, and then it's on to the next issue. With Kickstarter, people have not necessarily got, like in the case of Cini, issue 0 and 1 already. So when you do 2 and 3, you have 0 and 1 available again. So the Geek Girl one, because Geek Girl's been going for quite a while now, it's up to issue, well, as far as Kickstarter backers they've got up to issue 11 of the ongoing. So you get people you'll get backers that will discover it. Obviously, you always get, as well as returning backers, new backers, and you will get people that will come on and buy the whole back catalogue. So that versus if you've got 2 issues out on Kickstarter versus if you've had 11 issues of the ongoing and 4 issues of the mini series and a 0 issue, and someone comes along and buys the lot, that's gonna bump up the pledge.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you have a library, and it's obviously the first one's hard, the second one's hard, the third one's hard. And me and a guest last night were speaking, and we were disagreeing in a very playful world where she's like, the suck starts sucking a little bit less. And I said, and I'm a strong believer that the suck doesn't start sucking any less. It's incredibly hard to do anything. And this show is incredibly hard. This show is harder actually now than it was 9 years ago when I started. But I'm more accustomed to it. I'm more seasoned. I more know what to expect. But the difficulty level and the sucky levelness of it hasn't changed. In my opinion, it's just that I'm more used to it and I'm not as raw. And
why would you say it's harder than it was?
I say it's harder because, things have changed. Technology has changed. There's more competition. Also, there's the idea that I think people are expecting more now in media, and I think people are expecting more out of comics. I think people are expecting more out of everything collectively now in our society. I think employers are expecting more. And I think it's very interesting where I think people are expecting more, and people are expecting more guests, and they're expecting more interesting guests. And it's actually harder than it was 9 years ago. 9 years ago, nobody was doing this the same way. And now everybody's doing it. And it's complicated. And, I have to zig and zag, and finding guests is difficult. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So that's the point, is that I don't think this has gotten easier. I'm just more used to it. It's not as raw when I don't get an interview or somebody says, I don't want to be on your show. 9 years ago, it was raw. But that's just how I viewed that. And I haven't written a comic, but I would imagine that it's similar. And let's be realistic, Kickstarter's gotten a hell of a lot harder in the last year and a half.
I don't know. I mean, one thing I find that's great about Kickstarter, the more you do it, is you'll get, returning backers. Again, Geek Girl haven't been going for a while, and they'll generally come out at the start. So, like, obviously, Cabra had a previous backer. We've got people that have seen Cabra and Geek Girl coming over to this Kickstarter as well, and this funded pretty quickly. So you get this loyal fan base that are eager for it. Whereas if you're going in cold, you've not got that.
That is a fair point. That is a fair point. But I just think it's gotten harder. I think it's gotten harder because I think there's more better projects on Kickstarter right now. I think money is tighter. I think people are getting fed up, honestly, with lack of accountability on Kickstarter and delays that should have been prevented. I also think that there's a lot of good stuff outside of Kickstarter and Indiegogo and crowdfunding. I mean, you have to look for some of it, but there's a lot of good stuff. And I can tell you right now, I could go to Barnes & Noble and pick up a manga that is just as good as anything else on Kickstarter right now. And I'm not saying American comics. There's a few good American comics right now, but manga is killing it on story. And then on top of that, there's a lot of other good content out there too, beyond comics. I mean, Netflix is killing it, and Hulu's killing it, and Disney's killing it, and Paramount's killing it. So that's why I say this is a lot harder, because you have to earn my time and my money. And that's where this is getting complicated. And as a consumer, I have so many choices as an individual that if you don't capture me, or I don't get it, or I say, hey, your book's good, but is it great? I can wait and see what is great and then get it. And especially, even if it's limited, there's a lot of limited great stuff. And that's why I say it's harder than ever before. I know this media. I mean, this show, I understand that every viewer, I have to earn their 50 seconds that they watch, or have to earn their 20 minutes they watch. And it's so complicated. It's so hard. It's so hard.
I mean, all you can do is, you do what you believe in, whether that is presenting, whether that is creating a comic book. I give everything I've got to Cabra. I put my heart and soul into it. And I think that, comes through. And it's different as well. And there are things like this at the moment you can only get on Kickstarter. So there's that going to Kickstarter for it.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, I put my heart and soul into this, and there are people who get it. There's a lot of people who do interview shows. There's people who do things similar to me. And what I figured out, though, and I'll be very honest, is that there are people who like me. There are people who want to see this, and then there's people who discover me all the time. So I get it. And I'm not saying I'm quitting everybody. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that it's hard. And now creation is hard, just collectively, I think, because everybody can do it, and the barrier to entry has been lowered to zero, pretty much right to zero. And it's crazy. And I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for somebody to say, here's a mystery comic, and they have no images and $100, and I guarantee you that if you put that up, and this is like the ultimate test, right? Is no images, say cover A, cover B, cover C, cover D, and cover E will be a nude cover. They might get funded at $100, and they might get like 10K. They might get 10K very easily, because if it no massive description, just a generic description of something, they might get funded because it's crazy. And I'm surprised a top comic writer hasn't done that yet. I'm really surprised that they just created a mystery, a surprise comic book saying it's going to be a real book. But I'm surprised Scott Snyder hasn't done it because I think it would do 100K in minutes.
No, it's an interesting idea, but I think the key part of that you just said is it can't be something that's a complete blank. There's got to be a name attached to it to achieve that success. Because if you're going for a Scott Snyder, a James Tynion, they put something on Kickstarter, you've got the breadth of their work to give you some idea of what you're getting. You're not going to expect a funny animals book.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But I do think that if you put it for $100 and all of a sudden, the only way this will work is that it'll work because it's rooted. The theory that I have, and I might do it because it's brilliant. The theory I have is that if all of a sudden within minutes it does like $2,000, people, and at $100, people say there must be something here, and I need to flock into it. And that's where I think this gets interesting, because that happens on Kickstarter all the time. Is the second something gets funded, people flock into it, and it's so interesting. And I feel more comfortable when something gets funded, and I'm then become a backer. So when I know what book is funded and it's funded by 200, 300, 400%, it's easier for me to back in because I know now that this thing, if 400 people came into it, I now want to be 401 because I'm part of the crowd. And that's where I think this gets so interesting, even with a name or without. But again, I might be the guy that tests it because I think it'd be great. But then you deliver a kick-ass book and people be like, you delivered a kick-ass mystery book that you have to go in with a battle plan. The battle plan is that, it's brilliant. I'm absolutely going to do this. It's going to be sick. Oh, I'm going to get so much shit for it too. I'm going to get so much shit. And people will be like, why would you do that? No images, no nothing. You put like a question mark on every page. Oh, it'd be great.
I do think though it's for that to be a success, it can't be a complete blank. Like we said, if there's an author attached, you've got their previous work to reference.
Are you telling me? I just want to get this crystal clear that this face is not beautiful to sell the book.
Well, would your face even be on it, or would everything be a complete blank?
Oh no, I'll put my face. Just
your face. Okay, so you're banking on your face as the selling.
We'll have stretch goals of a sticker of my face. With the 200, we get a sticker of my face. This way.
That is a massive incentive, Andrew. Yeah.
I think we're gonna get to $200 in seconds. With that stretch goal in mind, and then when we get to 400, we'll get my torso.
Nice.
And then we get to 600, we get one of my legs. And then when we get to 800, we get the other leg. And then 1,000 will be this arm and hand. And then it'll be this one. It'll be great. You could build me in sticker format, guys.
Yeah. And then we can get the nude cover variant.
Absolutely. I will happily model for nude stickers. Absolutely. I'm just here to sell the book, guys. This is really a whole poise to sell a freaking sticker builder of myself.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. I haven't seen that done. I'm absolutely going to steal that idea. I think it's so ridiculous that people will just back the book just for that.
Yeah.
You get to build an Andrew sticker action figure. But I digress here. I'm sure I probably lost a bunch of people on my show because of that. I'm sure of it. See. They're probably upset because they're like, he's not going to do the nude stuff. A bunch of nude stickers. I'm just saying, if we get to $3,000 on my campaign, at some point I will do nude stickers. You can build me fully nude. And a censor bar will be included, I promise. I see it. My face is up here, Sam. I just want to make that crystal clear.
Yeah.
My face is up here. I just want to let you know. But anyway, I do want to talk about your rewards. So you got a bunch of them. You got a bunch of digital. Now that I could potentially have damaged your entire campaign with my sticker idea. Clearly.
Assuming there's still anyone watching at this point, but there's the Cabra Cini 1 to 3 issue 0 in regular digital editions, limited variants.
We're going to talk about that. So this is cover A.
Yeah, that's the regular cover, which is for the digital and regular. That's the limited virgin variant with just Carlos Vias's beautiful artwork with El Hombre Lobo and Cabra. And this is Chris Fisher's limited variant for issue 1. And Chris Fisher has done.
We can talk about this.
Done limited variants for all 4, though 4 is not out yet, but all 4 of the mini series. And a nice, painted style there, a very nice style to it. And that is the regular cover for Cabra 2 by Fernando Malik and Gaston Zabeldia, who are the pencil and ink. We use a lot of artists on this, but the issue 3 is. That's them. That's Gaston, at least again on the cover, and Fernando rather. Sorry, Fernando's worked on Crossed by Garth Ennis, which is a long-running, very dark series from Avatar, and he's the main artist on that. I think he's the main artist on that. Anyway, he provides the interiors in issue 3. In issue 3, we have Cabra going up. It's a couple of separate cases. One is taking on a family of zombies, and the other is
I got some more to show.
Right, so that's Chris Fisher's one for 2.
And then this is also it in the Virgin.
Yeah, all of it. So you can get the full skull in the Virgin there.
So that's the trade. That's the full skull, and then we have this one right here, which is very cool. And then this is the Virgin as well.
Yeah, so that's issue 3 again, and this is the superheroine I was referring to, where Cabra she's basically causing collateral damages, and during one of her fights has ended up knocking a car through some guy's store ceiling. So he hires Cabra to stop her doing this kind of thing. Because it's superheroes. There was that whole the Registration Act in Marvel and all that. They can basically destroy the neighborhood off the back of taking some villain down and not be accountable to it. So this guy's put this girl has inadvertently put a car through this guy's ceiling, and he's not happy about this. So that's where Cabra comes in to prevent her from doing what she does, which is what she's doing is a good thing, but it's causing collateral damage, and that's a problem.
And then we have this right here.
So that's 3 again. That's the super limited variant by Fernando and Gaston again, and that showcases in the background that same superhero flame girl, and you've got some of the zombie family on the other side, which make up the 2 stories of Cabra 3. And that's, super limited. I think there's only 50 of those.
And then we have this one too, which is cool.
Yeah, so that's Mike Bunt with issue 0's cover, where we get into the infinite for the first time, and a nice image.
And then we showed this one before, but this is that Grindhouse retro feeling color.
Yeah, that's the Kick-Ass Flops Comics Grindhouse. Yeah.
And then this is also that we spoke about this one too, which is
and that's the limited Virgin Cherry variant by Richard Morgan. again, very cool image, homaging Branny Cherry flavor.
And then obviously there's some Geek Girl stuff as well, where this is the limited number 9.
Yeah, so that's Carlos Diaz again, who did the regular cover for 1. That shows Cabra taking on one of the threats in the Infinite, and it leads directly into the miniseries in ways that won't become apparent until you get further into it. The miniseries is completely accessible without having read any Geek Girl, but her arc that runs through Geek Girl 5 to 9 and is collected in the Team Geek Girl trade paperback, which is available. There we go. That there's some good Cabra stuff in that, and it leads, as I say, directly into the miniseries.
And we all know how I feel about Geek Girl and her friends, but we don't need to rehash that. We all know my theory on that. But we don't need to rehash that. You're the writer, so you're probably more right than I am, but I could have my thoughts and I'll keep them to myself. I'm just saying, if we go with my theory, she picked right, is all I'm gonna say. And then I don't think this is on the campaign, but I love Sun Kumanaki and everything Sun Kumanaki has done. And you might have been one of her first covers, technically.
Yeah, I think we got in fairly early because I've seen her doing stuff for DC now, a great artist, and I would imagine now very, very expensive to get a cover that I don't know, maybe not.
I don't even think it's expense. I don't think it's expense. I just think it's just getting on our list.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, if she's still affordable to me, we actually talked at the time about doing a Cabra cover back in the day when she did that Geek Girl one. So that, I mean, I know she'd do something great. A really, really great artist. You can check her stuff out, sunkamanaki.com. I think it is Kamanaki, Khamunaki, I believe. And she's got fantastic, she does like homage prints. So you've got like hot female Mandalorian and hot female Boba Fett and those kind of things. And yeah, some really great prints that are pretty well priced, pretty reasonably priced.
Yeah, she's got a lot of stuff that's coming out, and it's kind of crazy. And obviously, she does a lot of stuff for Zenescope and so on and so forth, and just super busy. She's super busy. It's just one of those things, and obviously, I'm trying to get a cover from her. And again, it's not a money issue. It's just a time issue. I mean, it's a money issue if somebody's asking $10K for a cover. You know, I'm not going to pay just Scott Campbell prices.
Yeah.
But it's just a time issue, and it's just getting on somebody's list.
I mean, I would imagine she seems quite prolific. I would imagine she's in a position now where there's no gap unless she chooses to have a break. She could be just going from doing one cover to the next ongoing.
But all I'm going to say is that if you're busy 1 year for a stretch of 5 years, things could happen and you could be not busy. So, you got to make your money when you can, is all I'm saying. And that's true for life. So, that's all I'm going to say about everybody and every artist is that it weaves and it flows. Life is one gigantic circle. And so is this. But anyway, I digress right there. And then obviously you have a bunch of other stuff as well. Obviously there's a bunch of add-ons. I think there is also the influencers collectors pack. There's a bunch of combos. Pretty much anything that you want that you put out. If it's still available, you can get it. And if it's not on the Kickstarter, I'm sure that if you have it, you're more than happy to sell to people, especially because you're in the UK and I think you ship worldwide. And obviously sometimes, somebody doesn't want to just buy a single issue from you and they'll wait because they want to buy maybe 4 issues from you to save some money on shipping.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I do generally tend to have two new issues at a time is for the shipping, because it's like shipping international is expensive, but shipping two versus one is not that much more expensive. So I think that's a good way of making it more affordable. And hopefully this time we won't have a load of postal strikes.
Yeah, hopefully. And you never know. You never know what's going to happen. We're in that type of world where anything could happen in any which way. And then obviously there's a bunch of other stuff. And I am curious, though, how the UK comic scene is operating and what it looks like, because I'm familiar with the US version and what's going on in the United States in comics, and things seem to be operating relatively well with cons. But I'm curious how you view it in the UK and how it's being done, and if it's come back the same way it has come back in the US.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. I mean, obviously the COVID situation, caused a lot of problems, but I think it's all kind of come back. And a comic shop in the UK to a comic shop in the US is not dissimilar. It's primarily US comics, and I think that everything has kind of found its feet again. So yeah, I think that whole situation is all right now. I haven't done a convention in a while, but that's more because I've Kickstarter I'm doing them, somewhat regularly, and it is, you spend a lot of time building it up before it comes out, and then running it, and then fulfilling it. So that takes a lot of time. But I would be up for looking into doing some conventions now.
I haven't been to a con in like 3.5 years, and I'm probably not going to go for another year. Just a lot of stuff's going on, and running a business is hard. So I'm going to say, and I'll be very honest. I want to wait till the dust settles on what's going on with the world and the economy, because I think that's also a big thing that is definitely, I don't know which way it's going to fall. I don't. And so I'm very, not concerned, but I would like to see where the chips fall before I start making determinations on what I want to do, what cons I want to go to, what do I even want to do with producing my book and when I want to do it. Because again, I want to see where the economy is and things of that nature. And, I don't know how badly we're going to be screwed. And so that's the other thing too, is that there is advantage times and good times to launch a product and not launch a product. And that's how I feel. So, but I digress. I could be wrong. I mean, it could be that we're fine and this is all going to blow over in 2 months. And there you go. But again, I want to see where the chips fall before I really start committing to going to cons and things of that nature. I don't think I'm the only one. But that's just, maybe I am. Maybe I'm on an island all by myself. I don't know. I've been there before. I've been there before, everybody. I've been there before. But my island is always open to company. We have coconuts and we have mangoes.
That's
more
good.
than happy to share. It's so terrible. But on that note, I'll give you a chance to self-promote, unless you would like to share a mango or a coconut with me, because you're more than happy to. I mean,
consider a virtual mango and coconut shared, Andrew.
So that's you can self-promote, though. Seriously, you can self-promote now.
I think we've pretty well covered Cabra. Ex-Crackle turns supernatural gunfire is the tagline. CabraCini.com, CabraCini.com is the link that will take you to the Kickstarter. Issues 1 to 3 plus 0, running till the end of March. Available in digital, regular, limited variants. It's all there for you.
Yeah, and this is all I'm going to say is that you need to support, and you need to continue to support indie comics. And what that means is that when somebody has a Kickstarter, you should back their Kickstarter. You should share out their Kickstarter. You should actually let people know that they have it, because this stuff doesn't get made without support and economic support, sharing, even moral support, even shooting somebody a message saying, hey, really like your book. I wish you the best of luck, because it is hard to do a 30-day campaign, a 60-day campaign, a 3-week campaign, and it goes a long way. And you might not know what that person is going through on that day. And it is tough, especially for a new creator and even seasoned creators, because there are good days and bad days on Kickstarter. And so, it goes a long way. And then, just sharing that, tweeting out somebody's campaign is free. Liking it on Facebook, liking it on Instagram, even commenting goes a long way. And supporting them and checking out their websites, if they have a YouTube channel, all that stuff makes a huge difference. And actually following their social media, big deal. And then, as far as I'm concerned, with everything that I do, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. On YouTube, I am Pop Anime Comics, and I do a lot of interviews, and I have a lot of interviews readily available. So if you like interviews on pop culture, I recommend you go check me out on YouTube at Pop Anime Comics. And if you're watching on YouTube and you see this on YouTube, please subscribe so you don't miss anything that I do, because I guarantee you that I will have an interview that will be for you. I can't say you'll get smarter, but I will say you'll be entertained. And I will be hard pressed that you find that there's not an interview for anybody. There might only be one, but there will be an interview for everybody in the world on my YouTube channel. It's just a matter of you want to go through the 500 of them to find it. And that's all I have, as well as I do have my ad rates up there, and I have a t-shirt on Redbubble. So you can definitely check that stuff out, everybody. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Peace out.
I don't think I could have said that any better myself, and that is a wrap.